Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? My name is Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. In our last tutorial video, we took a look and saw how we can incorporate Adobe Fonts into our project, both in HTML and CSS, as well as Gatsby.js. In this video, I want to go a little further and show you how to incorporate bold, oblique, and bold oblique fonts into your design so you can use them in blog posts and websites and wherever you want to online. And with that, let's get started. All right, welcome back. This video series overall with the Designer Who Codes is designed to teach you more of the coding techniques to create better designs online. And I'm focusing in on fonts. Again, our last video we took a look at was how to bring in fonts from Adobe Fonts, formerly Typekit. It's still located inside the URL. But I wanted to take a look and see how we actually can bring in bold, oblique, and bold oblique. So when we talk about bold oblique and bold oblique, it's essentially we're focusing on paragraph copy. Usually headlines don't include those. So a lot of times if you search inside, also I'm at fonts.adobe.com, and full disclosure, you do have to pay for the Adobe Creative Cloud. This is not my rule, this is Adobe's rule. But you have to pay for the Adobe Creative Cloud series in order to use Adobe Fonts. It used to be that you would pay it for Typekit separately, but Adobe rolled the two together, and now it's Adobe Fonts, formerly called Typekit. So I'm in Browsing Fonts at Adobe Fonts, and there's two options you can choose from for recommendations. You can choose headings or paragraphs. And you'll usually notice if I choose this that these actually come up pretty good. But generally you'll find that headlines or headings come up with a lot less amount of fonts. So what you'll see is that there's 4 fonts for this one. If I go into this decorative series, then there's 3, there's 1. A lot of headline fonts don't come with particular weights involved with them. So when we're talking about bold oblique and bold oblique, which is the combination of strong and M's when it comes to HTML, it really comes down to paragraphs. And let's find, I love this part. There is no decorative paragraphs available within Adobe Fonts. It's just like, hey, you stumped us. You can't do this. It's kind of a fun little 404 message. You'll generally find the majority of them inside the sans serif category. You will also find serif fonts, but I'm going to just choose a font in the sans serif category for right now. Let's look for one that has a lot of different weights to it. So if I scroll down, let's grab, actually, where's my Mrs. Eves font? Let's see if Mrs. Eves has it. Mrs. Eves Sans, let's click on the font and see if we go inside of it, if it has the weights we're looking for. So we're looking for a regular font, and we're looking to make sure that the regular font, the book font in this case, has italic, has regular italic, and also has bold italic. So we're good right here. We can use regular, we have the italic font, so we're looking great. So you know what we should do is we should add these fonts. Let's add to a web project. And we will call this one a new project because why not? Create a new project. And I'm going to say bold and italics font project because why not? Now down here we can see which ones we want to load. So by default it gives us the options for regular, italic, bold, and bold italic. And that's great. We can also load up Mrs. Eves Sans, so we can load up both Mr. Eves. Oh, that's a new one. I thought it was just Mrs. Eves. It is Mr. Eves. I take it back. I've been saying it wrong for the past 5 minutes. So we can load up Mr. Eves Sans, and also it gives you all the Mr. Eves Modern. So I'm going to say create. And there we go. So now I can use, if I click in here, I can use all these to my advantage. But how do we apply them? So we've now said we want to use them, but how do we apply them? The first step is I have to apply this link rel into my HTML and CSS. And again, if you've watched my previous video, you can see how you can apply it to Gatsby.js. So let me put it right here. I'll take out my old code. This font's gonna blow up because that's what's just gonna happen. And I wanna come back and I wanna bring in these fonts. So we have to declare where we actually want to apply this font. I really don't like to say H1 for a paragraph font, so I just want to focus on the paragraph for a paragraph font. So for a P tag, I'm going to copy and paste the code for Mr. Eves. And I'll copy the regular font. So I'll come over, paste it in, making sure these are indented, and I'll flip my H1 to paragraph tags. We should get is the Mr. Eves font. Just so we can see a little bigger, I'm going to say font size, and I'll make it 40 pixels just so we can see a little bigger what we're working with. There we go. So how I want to apply the first one is I would need to apply the bold. And bold used to be the letter B, but it's changed to strong. So what I want to say is, I want to say P strong, or what I usually do is I just like to declare the strong as the strong weight. So I'm looking for the bold or strong, which is de facto 700, but I still want to make sure. So I will say 700. I'm not going to take the font family because I don't need it. Because I'm working in paragraphs, this should be fine. By default, the font weight is 700. If you want to bring a bold that's 500, then double check your numbers. So I'm just declaring it to make sure it is held the right way. So let's bold this. Let's say strong. And if we come over to the other side of bold, now we should get is the word bold in bold. Looks pretty good. The next thing I want to do is I want to make sure I bring in the italics, which is font style italic. So what I need to do is I have to say EM. That's the code for emphasis or italics. It used to be I. So in theory, you could also say EM, comma I to catch any legacy code. And the same with strong. You could say strong, comma B to catch any legacy bold fonts. But if you're building a new site, you should not be using B or I. So this is just to catch up if you have a legacy site that you want to kind of update without rewriting all of your code. So I'm just going to keep those two for right here. So like we saw before, what we're doing is, if I come back to Safari, we're just applying the font style in this instance. So font style italic. So our oblique will be EM, and oblique will be close EM. So now I have bold, I have oblique. The bold oblique is where you combine the strong and the M pieces. So I'm looking for is the bold italic, which is both 700 and italic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say strong, EM, comma, EM strong. In general, the strong goes first before the M, but then again, they're both inline styles, so either one will work appropriately. So font weight 700 and font style italic. That way, this P tag, because that's the overwhelming parent tag, will take the font. By default, it's 400 in normal, and I made a font size of 400. Then if I apply the strong, change it to 700. If I change the emphasis or italics to italic, make it italic. We can do also, let's move this down here. Let's move it right here. And for bold italic, it is strong and then M. And then on the very end of it, what it's going to look like, if I just move that back, is close strong. Let's move this out just a little bit and close EM. And now I have bold, oblique, and bold oblique being applied on behalf of Mr. Eves' modern font that I can use anywhere in my design. And by using strong M's and strong M's, you can apply those different weights. And if we go back here, if we say done, let me look for let's go find a font that has like 40 weights. Let's go find something like that. So if we use sans serif and paragraphs, that's usually where you'll find the most weights of all the fonts. So here we go. I just found Bernini Sans at 50. This is the case where if you don't want to use a 700, you might want to use something heavier. And if we actually load the fonts in, hello internet, you're doing it, you're doing it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the site won't load. There it goes. So if we look for a semi-bold, maybe semi-bold might be better than bold when it comes to design. If that's the case, and we use semi-bold, that's going to be less than 700. So how the numbers work, if you use something thin, so if I add this to a web project, let's Bernina Sans Light. Let's use the Sans Light, and then we'll use Sans Regulars. Maybe you want a lightweight font for your normal weight, and you want a regular weight for your bold. That is what you could have. It does, it's up to you what you are going for. So let's say I want the light font. Let's actually add a collection of them. So what I want to do is, you know what? Let's do it this way. Do one at a time. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit of a headache to take them all out. So I'm going to go into Bold and Italics Font Project, save that first one, and notice it's 300 now, not 400. So I'll save that, and then I'll take the Sans Italic, take the next one, Bold and Italics, save that. I'm done with that one. Save the regular because regular is going to be my bold. Or you know what? Let's change it up. Let's actually go Bernina Sans Semi-Bold in this case. So I'll take this bold and I'll say bold and italics. There we go. And I need the Sans Semi-Bold Italic. That's the 4 of them I have to use. And I'll apply the 4th one in here. So note when we actually use these that this is 600, not 700. So in this case, what we have to do is let's go to the first one up here, Sans Light, and let's read how I have to use it. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to go to my web project. My Adobe Fonts. And from here, what I'm going to look for is my web projects. This will show me all the fonts. And here it is, Bold and Italics Font Project. Awesome. If I edit the project, it'll show me all of the fonts I get to use. So for me, I'm looking for is I'm going to change my font family right here. And I'll come up to this one. Let me move the JS out of the way. And I'll change my font. So now these numbers will not correspond. So I have to then take the normal font at 300, which is light, and apply that down here. So it won't, whoops, not the top one. So the 300 is going to be the light weight of it. So this word and is now 300 at size normal and 30. So the strong /B is going to be semi-bold or 600. So if I copy this one, we can take out the font. And now what's going to happen is this font will change to the 600, not the 700 font. So by default, 700 is bold, but you can change it to 600 if that's your cup of tea that you want to use. And of course, we have to bring in italic. So if we copy the italic font, we'll change this one, making sure it is set to 300. If you did set this one as well, it'll then carry it down. So these are the same above, so we can take them out, and it's the same as italic. And then the last one I have to do is the strong EM, not 700, but 600. And just like that, I now applied the 600 weighted font to all of these, not the 700 weighted font. So there's a way to change it if you don't want to go 700 for bold and 400 for normal. And that's how you apply your strong, your emphasis /italics, and your bold, oblique, font to your project from Adobe Fonts.